will not let this power fall into the wrong hands. Especially not yours. Traitor! I'll never let the Legion have the spark!
F.I.S.T. Forged in Shadow Torch by T Games and Bilibili take the 2D side-scrolling formula and runs with mechanical flair in both its atmosphere and gameplay. Aside from some visual blemishes and initially restricted flow and structure, F.I.S.T. accomplishes its goals accompanied by the cool factor of playing as a rabbit bashing robots with a giant arm. F.I.S.T. tells the story of a rabbit named Rayton, who, when an old friend gets arrested and taken to prison and he goes to rescue him, punches a multitude of robots led by the legions of iron dogs along the way. Right out of the gate, the title takes the anthropomorphic route in terms of its character design, but it works surprisingly well. It never seemed too overdone and felt very natural and appealing to the setting. The story expands at a good pace and was very enjoyable throughout, due in part to Ray himself. I was able to sample both the English and Chinese voice work, and both casts do a fine job of selling the world of F.I.S.T, even if their character traits are familiar affairs. Still, having an English voice option in F.I.S.T is surprising to me, since there are a lot of voiced NPC conversations, and this is an independent game developed by a Chinese studio. Localization feats for a smaller game like this deserve recognition. The art style of F.I.S.T is very inspired for the approach that it goes for. Diesel punk, as it's referred to, is realized in the environmental design, and the background detail is very sharp on the PlayStation 5. The nighttime scenery in the outdoor areas like the starting city shift very well, with the camera adding a great deal of depth. The main city hub in particular looks great, along with its China-inspired scenery. F.I.S.T world is very industrial, and the soundtrack composed by Kaisong Bo complements this nicely. The OST blends jazz and piano tunes for the main city hub with quieter sounds to set the mood while exploring the various zones. Sometimes a great score sets out to complement the gameplay instead of overtaking it, and that is the case here. F.I.S.T runs at a smooth 60 FPS at a native 4K on the PlayStation 5, and keeps the frame rate with dynamic resolution scaling on the PS4 Pro. This is great because the two versions are very comparable in this respect. 1080p at 30 frames per second on the base PS4 console still can work modestly well, but when the platforming gets hairy, 60 FPS might seem vital. A performance mode on the PS4 to knock the resolution down to achieve a higher frame rate would be useful. One trapping F.I.S.T Forged in Shadow Torch falls into in its visual presentation is the use of motion blur and camera shake. The game uses both camera and per-object motion blur, taking away a significant amount of sharpness from the picture in both gameplay and cutscenes. Being a game made in Unreal Engine, this is likely a limitation of the software as opposed to an artistic choice, at least in regards to camera blur. The options menu offers no customization for the visuals other than the camera angle of finishers, so it comes down to personal preference. I almost always turn off camera blur, but in a 2D side-scroller such as F.I.S.T, it's less of an issue than in 3D games. Every time Ray attacks, the camera shakes a little or a lot, and unfortunately this cannot be turned off either. While most of the cutscenes in the game are with static models with limited animation, the dynamic cutscenes are when the animators really flex their muscles. Characters have great choreography in these sequences, and they really highlight what motion blur can add to the table when animating characters. The combat starts off pretty stale and clunky. Weapons have light and heavy attacks that can be chained together, but there isn't much room for experimentation. The skill tree for each weapon is built around adding combos instead of boosts to attack or health. Players are specifically shown what they can and cannot do. It's only when later abilities and combo extenders are gained when things really get going. However, most of the later skills for each weapon do require data discs, which can be obtained from boss fights, exploration, or purchased for a hefty sum. SP moves are stronger attacks that use a resource bar filled by attacking foes. I think that these are best used as strong combo enders and can make combat more manageable. Some of the boss fights can be very taxing, and this is because of how enemies' staggering is handled. When Ray staggers or does not stagger a foe, it's very inconsistent, and can lead to taking unnecessary hits or deaths when committing to combos. To that end, SP abilities do not grant invincibility either, but have a better chance to stagger. There are 2 more weapons obtained in the story, but Ray's first tool in his arsenal is the most fun and versatile to use. But the second weapon he obtains, a drill, does allow him to glide and traverse underwater, which is a great boost to moving around the world. The interconnected map is incredibly large. Each named zone, such as the sewers, tower, or otherwise, are color-coded on the map to help differentiate them from the world view. Tracking later objectives or previously unclaimed secrets can be a pain, but mission goals are easily seen with a small text box or a red exclamation icon on screen. One other minor note about viewing the map is that you cannot cycle through or pin specific icons for collectibles and goals. What this comes down to is a map that does the job at letting you know what's around you and where you can go, but heavy backtracking might require a little more time to relearn where certain doors or barriers were that hide secrets. Traversal offers a more steady form of progression, and in a game like this, it is always welcome, and this part of the game delivers on the fun factor the most. F.I.S.T knows when it's the right time to introduce a new movement option after you've gotten accustomed to a previous ability. Ray will find Transformers throughout the world, giving him movement upgrades. Like with combat, traversing the world can be stiff, but it becomes fast and fluid past the early parts of the game. One small but extremely appreciated aspect of the platforming challenge that really helps its pace is that hugging walls does give you an extra dash. This gives the player fluid movement throughout the levels, which are largely boxed rooms and hallways filled with enemies and traps. It's when F.I.S.T combines combat with intense platforming challenges that starts to bring a level of frustration. Depending on the combination of enemies and room hazards, moving forward may take several tries. Early on, there's a skill that makes executions give EP back. EP is a resource used for gadgets, and one of them is a flask that heals Ray. I recommend getting this ability in the skill tree as soon as possible, as it can help you go through tougher areas as long as enemies are able to be executed along the way. Some foes do have weapons that can stun or stick you in place, and certain hazards like poisonous fluid in the sewers make this a really lethal and vexing combination. F.I.S.T Forged in Shadow Torch is worth keeping an eye on. It brings some unique flavor to the genre with its story and world building, but lacks some map functionality. After some time gaining the exploration and combat tools available, platforming is very responsive and fluid to play, even though the combat doesn't reach the same heights. Ever still, punching robots with a large metal fist is very satisfying to do. And with that, we reached the end of the video. Have anything to say? Let us know in the comments below. Also, we upload new videos every single day on GamingBolt, so please consider subscribing as it really helps us out. Thanks for watching.